G'day, I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Today on February 12th, 2025. I'm joined as usual by Western Standard senior columnist Cory Morgan.
Always a pleasure.
And Western Standard senior editor Dave Naylor.
Good to be here, Derek.
Nigel is away on some well-deserved R&R, so we're happy to fill in our reoriented studio. We've decided to move away a bit from the green screen that you guys have been used to. We just literally turned the studio 90 degrees, so we've got the newsroom in the background, which is actually what we built this thing for to begin with. So, we're going to see how it goes. The best part, producer, come to camera one for me for a second. It's something I want to do. I just want you to know that there's Jen in the background right there. She's trying to hide behind me. I just want you to know that she's there. She might be picking her nose or eating a sandwich or something. So you guys might see something in the background at some point. We saw Elon Musk's kid picking his nose while in the Oval Office. Let's be realistic. Even grown-ups pick their nose, so you might see something in the background. But just don't hold it against us. We're humans, and it's just people going about doing their job in the background there.
But let us know what you see. Let us know what you see.
Yeah, there's Jen. Okay, she's covered behind me on this camera angle. But there we go again. There she is. Okay. We've got a good show today. There's a lot of people who have been dragging Canada through the mud, saying this is a imperialistic, genocidal, blood-soaked nation built on stolen land. The Canadian flag is a symbol of shame. We should lower it for 6 months, sit in sackcloth and ashes, wear a hair shirt, and all of a sudden, demanding we man the ramparts, build 100,000-man army to resist the orange tyrant. No, they're not talking about Naheed Nenshi. They're talking about Donald Trump. Demanding that we wave the Canadian flag, that we be proud of this country. Well, many of us actually didn't hate Canada for the last 10 years. And so it's a bit jarring to see now. So we're going to be talking about the sudden demand for patriotism from those who have had so little of it for so long. Very interesting polling. There's been some trends, different degrees of it we're seeing, but we're seeing a definite recovery from the federal Liberal Party in the polls as people just begin to assume that it's going to be Mark Carney. I still don't think most Canadians know who Mark Carney is, but smart talking heads on television tell them he's so very smart, he's so very Toronto, so very international that he's best for us. And so I guess, at least especially in Eastern Canada and some pockets in the lower mainland of BC, people are buying it. So we're going to talk about the shift in the polls, recovery for the Liberals so far. And we're going to talk about a growing maybe scandal, not yet known, taking place here in Alberta. Allegations that came from the Globe and Mail, Carrie Tate at the Globe and Mail, the last week of potential impropriety with contracts for surgeries and whatnot taking place in Alberta Health Services. It's a fairly layered and complicated issue. I'm not sure we can call it a scandal yet, but maybe it will become one, maybe not. We're going to unpack that a bit. Before we get going, though, I want to thank our wonderful sponsor. This episode of The Pipeline is brought to you by New World Precious Metals, based right here in Alberta. Years of inflationary money printing and rising debt have decimated the average Canadian's savings. Gold and silver are the only currencies that have held their value for thousands of years. Last year saw 30% gains. New World Precious Metals offers unique platforms to help protect and grow your hard-earned wealth with gold and silver. So check them out at newworldpm.com. Again, you can find New World Precious Metals at newworldpm.com. Okay. So, for the last decade, it's been very fashionable for far-left city councils to cancel Canada Day celebrations. No fireworks to celebrate its colonial genocidal state. It's been fashionable to lower the Canadian flag at half-mast in a natural ritualistic shaming of the nation. This bloodstone soaked flag needs to be lowered for 6 months. It only went back up, I think, when it came to Remembrance Day, and they're like, well, this is going to be awkward to bring it down half-mast to honor the veterans of Canada. It's going to have to be the top first. And so I guess we're going to put it back up just so we can bring it back down. A Liberal and NDP bill, which thankfully killed in prorogation here, but a Liberal and NDP private members bill in Parliament that sought to criminalize questioning if Canada is a genocidal state, toppling of statues of Queen Victoria, the monarch at Canada's founding, toppling of statues of Sir John A. Macdonald, Canada's founding prime minister, toppling of statues of all sorts of important figures in Canadian history. You can like them or not, but I mean, none of them rose to the level of Saddam Hussein or Joseph Stalin. I think deserving having a statue toppled. But it's been very fashionable in certain fashionable circles to denigrate Canada for quite some time now, and this predates Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau's prime minister made it official federal government policy to do so, but this has a cultural move that's been going on for much longer. All of a sudden, the bad orange man putting on some tariffs, threatening other tariffs, and demanding / strongly recommending and arm twisting that Canada join the United States. And all of a sudden, these people are demanding that we raise the flag and stand on guard for the show pride in Canada, talk about how great Canada is, buy Canadian. When they talk about buy Canadian, they don't seem to really mean Canadian oil and gas. I think they mean Canadian widgets manufactured in Ontario and Quebec, but that seems to really apply to products coming from the prairies very much. But a real chest thumping here. And someone who's not the most guilty, but probably a little guilty of this, would be Calgary Herald columnist Don Braid. I mean, he's an interesting read. Some days you're like, yeah, you're nodding along. Yeah, he really hit it on the head. The next day you're like, the guy's out to lunch. But Don Braid was saying Canada should raise 100,000-man army. In terms of actual battlefield-capable troops we have right now, I would doubt we could probably put together a brigade of 5,000 at this point. So that's a significant increase, 5,000 to 100,000 if we're talking actual battlefield-ready troops. That we should raise the Grand Armée of Canada to resist the potential American invasion. I mean, if the Americans wanted to come this way, we could raise 1 million-man army. I don't think we could do anything. Just ridiculousness. But here, we're going to put this tweet up on the screen. This is some guy here. Of course, he has pronouns in his bio, and a certain multicolored flag and the Ukrainian flag. So it's exactly what you expect. But let's see. I think he's tweeting in. This is just 2.5 years ago. On this Canada, I can't help but think perhaps we need a new flag or refreshed flag, because Canada, and arguably our flag, was tarnished long before the convoy, with centuries of blood and genocidal murder of Indigenous nations. We need a reset, a new symbol. Now, just to point out, for the sake of the historical record here, the Canadian flag has not been around for centuries. It's been around since the 1960s. Before that, we had the red ensign, which served us quite well. Before that, just the Union Jack. And then, yesterday, Mr. Mike Gerald Gibbs, him, in case you didn't know, Mike, no, it's not Big Mike. This is Mike Gibbs. He tweets, "There's nothing better than a brand new Canadian flag. Just got it from Canadian Tire. Hashtag FUCK Trump. Hashtag FUCK MAGA." Wow. This man is standing on guard for thee right now. He seems to have gotten the Canadian ice in his bones. Cory, what's brought on this sudden wave of patriotism, and why have you not been keeping up?
Yeah, I seem to have gotten left behind in the wash. I mean, hypocrisy is just striking out of them. I mean, a person's allowed to change their mind, but the extent with which these guys denigrated any form of patriotism in Canada. As you said, showing that earlier tweet. I mean, every event we go to, we listen to a land acknowledgement. We're expected to look at our shoes. One of the things I asked online recently, well, apparently I'm a settler, so why should I care about Canada's sovereignty? I'm just another rider on this genocidal train anyways. They've done quite the about face, but it's because I think some of them are realizing the foolishness of what they've built here. I mean, we've also had a country that's, getting more beyond the patriotism, but into stunting our ability to stand up to a hostile nation, whether it's a lack of military, a lack of broadened trade ability due to lack of pipelines or even good ports. And these guys, they're embracing jingoism, which it just rings shallow, though. If it's suddenly overnight, this isn't some deep abiding love of Canada. It's at best, it's just a large hate of the United States. And that's not the right reason to get on board.
Yeah, but I think it's great. We've always been very weirded out by the patriotism in the United States and how they seem to go way over the top. And we would never do that. We would never do that in Canada. Well, why not? There's nothing wrong with proudly singing your national anthem. There's nothing wrong with flying the Canadian flag. There's nothing wrong with singing "God Save the King" before class. And that's the type of stuff we need to get back to, instead of, as Derek has summarized, this 10 years of navel gazing and land acknowledgements before every press conference, reminding you what you've done to how you've genocided the indigenous population. So I like it, and it's all obviously to do with the big orange man, but and obviously the military stuff is ludicrous. This is a government that wants to take away our guns, and then we're expected to fight. Look, we've got 55 tanks. The Canadian Armed Forces has 55 tanks. The United States has 5,500. If they wanted to, they could overtake the entire country in a weekend. And what are you going to do? You see a platoon of Marines coming your way in Prentice. You're going to take your little gun and then head for the hills and form your resistance? No, there's nothing we could do about it. So yeah, let's be proud about Canada, because you know what? Once we get our stuff figured out, we're going to be a damn good place to live again.
There's a quote that comes to mind here from Samuel Johnson. Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. And that is, that the quote has been misconstrued sometimes to say patriotism is a bad thing. No. But patriotism is abused by governments on left and right and throughout all history. It's been abused and weaponized sometimes to cover up its own failings when all else has failed. You want to have an external enemy or something, and that's what's happening here. Now, I don't think Trudeau created the external enemy of Trump. Trump is just Trump, and Trump is gonna do Trump. But they are using it as the last refuge of the scoundrel here. It's just so obvious to me, but I don't think it's so obvious to many in Canada.
Patriots of convenience.
Yeah, it's of political convenience.
Yes.
I'm just going to kind of read a Twitter thread I posted. I think it was a day or two ago here. This was in kind of in response to all this. What really set me off was the parade column that we should raise this great army. Well, who's going to fight in this army right now?
They'd have to bring back conscription.
You would never get it.
You would never get 100,000.
No. There was a time probably when we could have 100,000 man army without conscription. I grew up in Army and Air Force towns. It had always been my dream to be a submarine boat captain until it dawned on me that Canada didn't have functional submarines. We still don't. So thank God I did not go and do a naval career in Canada, because I'd be the captain of a stone frigate. Maybe I'd have the title of a captain or something, but no actual ship to sail. And as it was, in hindsight, perhaps it wasn't such a great idea to use the War Measures or Emergencies Act against the kind of people you would need to fight for a country's independence. Perhaps demonizing poor, young, rural white men as inherently racist, privileged yokels wasn't such a great idea when you need them to fill the ranks of your suddenly patriotic army. Maybe replacing merit and martial culture with DEI hires in the military wasn't such a bright idea when you wake up one day and realize that a functional military requires merit and martial culture. It may have been ill-advised to propagandize patriotic young Canadians that their country is an evil, illegitimate, genocidal state on stolen land when you all of a sudden ask them to sign up and spill their blood to defend said state and land. If you want Canadians to sacrifice it for the flag, consider not lowering it to half-mast for 6 months in ritual shame. If you want Westerners to stand shoulder to shoulder with Easterners, consider treating us as equals. If you want Canada to be an independent country, start acting like you believe it yourself before the bad orange man cometh. I'm not going to name names, but I got a member of my family who served, I think, just a little over a decade in the Canadian Army. He is, rural, white, patriotic, kind of people who used to fill out most of the Canadian Armed Forces, but the kind of person who found himself being told he's evil, just for who he is, where he's born, how he's born, and that there are more important things than the ability to defend Canada with military might. And that was diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he just got sick of it and quit. And I know a lot of people who, I live in military towns. I know tons of people who served. Some who served in combat in Afghanistan. They're done with it. They just don't want anything to do with this. I don't think this can be rebuilt in just a few years with a new conservative Polyev government. Martial culture takes generations to build. It can be destroyed very quickly, but it takes generations to build. I don't think this is going to be turned around with a Buy Canadian campaign and demanding we fly the flag without shame for once here. It takes generations to fix this kind of cultural rot.
Well, and they're on the cusp of a good idea, though. One of the points, again, Trump was correct about, and I get in enough battles with my own followers online. I'm not a big Trump fan, but he's correct about some things. He's wrong about others. Is Canada has been riding on the coattails of the American military system for a long, long time, and it's allowed Canada to underinvest in its military. We should be investing in it. We should be expanding it. Don't worry about tampons in the men's room. Equip them properly. Spend the money on it, but not with some ludicrous notion that you're going to defend yourself against the United States, but just to reach that 2% bar we committed to decades ago and never met, and just participating as an international citizen with a reasonable defense force. So, they're half right. We should be looking at it. But I'm sorry, Don Braid, and I really do. I think very highly of Braid. I think he maybe just had a bad day or something, because he writes some brilliant stuff. But this idea that we can raise a defensive force against the United States is just misdirected.
What we have to do is what Trump has done in the States. We have to clean house with the military. We have to put a warrior in charge as the chief of defense staff. We need to take tampon machines out of the bathrooms. We need to do what Trump has done. Men's bathrooms, yes. They can stay in the women's bathrooms, obviously. And get rid of all the DEI culture in the military. And, Derek's right. It's not going to be done overnight. But you look at in December, January, the United States military had their best recruiting month in years. And that was because people want to protect the United States. They like what Trump was saying. So they wanted to sign up and serve. If we can get somebody who's, that sort of charismatic, running the military, you'll get people to sign up, and you'll get the DEI people going to get shuffled out.
Yeah, no disagreement from me.
I think it's wild seeing also the self-righteousness of these suddenly patriotic people. It's not just that they haven't apologized or acknowledged the damage that they've been doing. Again, this goes back more than a decade. It's only the last decade that it was the federal government itself actively participating in this. Yeah. But, but as a cultural progressivist movement, they haven't acknowledged that maybe we went a little far. Maybe we did real damage to the social fabric and cohesion of Canada with what we've done. They haven't acknowledged that. And then it's accusatory. It's everyone else who doesn't stand with your version of suddenly patriotic.
Oh, you're a traitor now.
Yeah, you're a traitor now. Okay, well, who was the traitor, I don't know, 6 months ago when you were saying Canada was a genocidal state without a shred of evidence? These people have not acknowledged it, and they're accusatory. They've got a almost, McCarthyist
It's gotten viable online. And some of the others too, again, who are usually a little more contained, but it's the Trump derangement syndrome. It really is in some of those things. Warren Kinsella runs a little poll on X, but he's got quite a following on there, and he's been an established strategist and columnist for a long time. Saying, would you be willing to take up arms and fight against, to defend Canada against this? Warren, you were Chrétien's advisor when you were trying to register and steal our firearms in the 90s. You were calling us traitors for wanting to hang on to those. You were calling us traitors for being regional and trying to defend our property rights out here. And now you're telling us we should be willing to take up these arms that you didn't manage to steal back then and defend the nation that stepped on us. Kiss my butt, Warren. Where's this complete... But is he not listening to himself? I mean, he's not a stupid man, but it's bizarre.
It was just mere months ago that Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government was saying they're going to steal the guns of otherwise law-abiding Canadians to give them to Ukraine. Well, maybe all of a sudden we could use it. No matter what. I mean, my hunting rifle is not going to do much if the United States Marine Corps or Army decides to roll through Calgary. It's not going to be of any use whatsoever. But I mean, it's
still killed pretty fast if you wanted to measure.
Yeah, it's a real way it's suicide by army.
Yeah.
Could you see Trudeau going to Zelensky? Please, sir, can we have our guns back?
I mean, be sure we never unwrapped them, you idiot. They were 22s.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it just boggles the mind. It boggles the mind that so many Canadians are willing to drink this stuff.
Enough. That's
all right. Well, speaking of, that's a good segue.
You thought you were going purposely into that.
No, yes, that was an intentional segue. A lot of Canadians, particularly in the East, probably a few out here, but mostly in the East, are buying it. They're drinking it. I mean, the idea of a carbon tax election, does seem to be out the window. There are bigger issues now. I mean, somewhat bigger because the Liberals have, at least the leading candidates for the Liberal leadership have all said they're going to get rid of the carbon tax, which is not true. They're going to get rid of 1/3 of the carbon tax, the consumer portion. They're going to leave in place 2/3 the industrial portion, which is actually what makes us economically uncompetitive, especially as the United States, ribs up the Paris Climate Accord and things like that. But they're going to replace it with other measures on climate stuff that are going to be even more expensive than the carbon tax. But, okay, so there's not going to be a carbon tax election. Trump, I mean, his 51st state stuff is... I get coming over you. You said I was absolutely mad. You and Nigel both thought I was barking mad, carpet biting mad, for saying when I eventually said, I don't think Trump is entirely joking anymore. It's pretty clear at this point he's not. It's if he actually thinks it's going to happen or not is a different question. But this is not just trolling. This is something now. And I think it's I think it's been a political boon to the Liberals who have seen a rally in the polls. That does not mean they're going to win or be spared the just desserts of what they've got coming, maybe. Recall that even in the first week of the 1993 election, remember the election where the Progressive Conservatives went from a majority government to 2 seats. They got utterly annihilated, the biggest defeat in the history of the democratic world ever. The first week of that campaign, they were tied with the Liberals at like 37%. So this could just be a blip, and then Canadians see Mark Carney, and they're like, no, Liberals are still the Liberals. Maybe it goes back. But for now, at least, a lot of Canadians are going right back to the mothership, Dave.
They are. A poll out yesterday showing with Carney as the leader, the Liberals are actually tied with the Conservatives. I think it was 37%. And it wasn't more than a month ago that the Tories had a 20-point lead. So it's a considerable increase for Carney, obviously in Ontario. Liberals are now leading in Ontario. So my message to Ontarians is, where have you been the last 4 years? What have you, he's got a long way to go. He still doesn't have much of a public profile. He's not taking tough questions. He's getting spoon-fed by the mainstream media, especially CBC, who will show an entire Carney event and then cut Poilievre off after a few minutes. Their bias is certainly showing. So, I would like to think when it gets down to a battle, if it does, and it's looking likely between Carney and Polyev, Carney will come across as the sort of dull uh, dude that he is.
I think so. I mean, what we're seeing too, for those, it is not even that long ago, Ignatieff Part 2. I mean, this was the intellectual, the fixer, the person who's going to come in, who's going to, revitalize the Liberal Party. And he had some degree of support going in. They really thought that's what was going to happen. But as people actually got to know him, no, he was more of the same. I mean, the campaign against him, only visiting. I mean, Carney, as people get to know him, oh, wait a minute, this man's barely been in Canada.
Doesn't have a postal address in Canada.
Yeah, and that does, when you're talking on an election run on jingoism, that's not a good sign. When how's your New York penthouse doing? As you're trying to say you're going to defend us from the evil Americans, there's going to be some very easy areas, and I think the only reason the Conservatives haven't taken those shots at him yet is they're keeping their powder dry for the election. The thing I'm more worried about is, when are we gonna bloody get it?
And the photo this week of Carney playing net, he looked like a complete dweeb in his $2,000 footwear. He's not even got a catcher's mitt on to catch the ball. I'm sure there wasn't a hockey ball anywhere near that ball.
There was ice.
Yeah,
It was ice, which further defies explanation of why he's wearing his $2,000 loafers instead of skates.
but he looked uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Right? It was
don't try to be what you aren't. It just comes off as fake.
I actually think within Canada there is a very significant political market for an elitist, the philosopher king, an Ignatieff type figure. Maybe it's a little more better political chops, but Canadians like elites. They do. They like Trudeau, but they have to be themselves. So if Mark Carney, I think actually Mark Carney would have a chance if he ran as Mark Carney.
Yeah.
You know what? Do I think I'm smarter than you guys? Yeah, I do. You know why? Because I am smarter. That's the honest approach. No, don't you want a leader who is smarter than you, who does know better? Trust me. To an extent, Trump does that, and he embraces it. He's like, I'm better at business than you guys. I'm better at money. Trust me to do it. I've got the personality. I've got the skills. You're losers.
You got what?
And he's just brash and open about it. I think Carney would at least have a better chance if he just ran as Carney. Instead, he's like trying to hold us, trying to close every Bud Light can. He's like, hello, fellow blue collar workers. It's just like, get off. You're a highly accomplished man. Embrace it. And run on that. I think I'm still not voting for him because I disagree with his ideology. But as a personality running, I think that's a much more compelling figure than this phony guy.
And don't underestimate how devastating awkward optics can be, going all the way back. When did Stanfield with the football?
football. I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Devastating the whole campaign. Just one simple opt-in. And those were the days before internet. These are the days before things could really go viral. Or a little later, the Howard Dean scream. This was a man on the way up. One awkward, weird scream during a rally. And I mean, he probably wasn't going to get there. Who knows? But that thing was kind of the final straw.
It had a chance before then.
But it's when you're trying to be what you aren't. When you're comfortable just being yourself, doing what you are, you reduce the chances of getting into that awkward, unusual situation that was outside of your own element. So the Carney campaign better be careful. That hockey thing could have gone wrong. Maybe there was a kid in the back with a puck. I mean, if you got nailed in the knackers without a can on, then we'd see just how fake that
It went wrong with the finished result.
Yeah.
That picture make him look stupid.
Yes. As we knew, would have been better with nothing.
Yeah, so somebody in that
It's like
campaign.
Justin Trudeau holding a hammer backwards.
Don't pretend to be a contractor, Justin.
Being cosplay contractor.
Yeah.
No one expects that you do that. There's no expectation. You don't do it.
Every time he puts on a hard hat to tour a factory, he's mocked.
Yeah. And then there was,
Gretchen had that military helmet on backwards that one time. Again, that was just an honest mistake.
we'll step on the hairnet.
Just be careful, guys. But whatever. I mean, Polyev could screw up as well. But
Yeah.
you can't pick Carney as an everyman. He won't fit that way. He's not.
You don't have to run. I think it's I think we're in a populist moment, but it's still the Liberals can get elected with 32% of the vote with a minority government here. The Liberals can get 32%. That is doable to do. But they're just intent on not running Carney as Carney. They're afraid. You remember Michael Ignatieff, and he was just like, remember that bizarre speech he gave towards the end of the campaign? It was, rise up, rise up. He was trying to, he was doing like a Braveheart impression, rise up. And it was a bizarre and awkward and off-putting. He could have just been like, I'm a smart professor. Canada's a smart country. If you're smart, you'll vote for me. It would have been a better pitch than Braveheart.
It's been a weird year. We're in for a lot more weird these. Yeah, I mean, part of it too, I think, is this blip in the polls, I think, is a blip, and they know it. It's not solid. I mean, this is a riding the tide of I mean, you can't beat having an external enemy to rally against, to get people together under existing leadership, no matter who it might be. But when the question comes up, okay, now is the coin toss, now is the election, now is when you're really looking at who's going to lead after this. I suspect a lot of Canadians are going to reevaluate as compared to what they're putting on.
Yeah, keep in mind the pollsters are Liberal favorites anyways, right? Especially Ecos and Franklin. I mean, they got out.
Ecos for sure. The others not as much. Now you're seeing Frank Graves. I don't have access to the guy's medical records or anything, but he's clearly not well.
He's challenged.
He's about as stable as Carney at this point.
They need to lock him and Andrew Coyne up in the room and get them medicated.
Other pollsters are showing it now. Frank Graves is showing it the hardest.
Then Coletto with Abacus isn't showing this. He's shown some movement, but not.
It's a small move, but it's still way back.
And something interesting with the big one that showed them tied. If you break that one down in their regionals, they also said Alberta would come out of that election with 3 Liberal seats, which we know our local turf well enough to know that Randy killed that constituency in Edmonton. The Porch Pirate in Northeast Calgary, very unlikely to get reelected. And where's this third Liberal going to come out?
Okay, but maybe one Randy loses a seat, but the other one keeps it.
Well, it could be. You've got to defeat a lot of Randys to get that seat. But, I mean, it just shows, though, that there's some regional disparity in what they're trying to claim. I mean, those of us with a political ear on the ground know that a lot of things change and we're in a wild world, but the world where Alberta would actually increase a Liberal presence right now in this climate, come on, there's something wrong with that whole.
And at least one of the Randys is going to be in trouble because they came out and supported Freeland today.
Yeah.
So he's already going to be in Carney's bad books.
Oh, she'll lock up the Pocahontas folk.
Yes.
Well, we got to give some credit here. Andrew Scheer, the former federal conservative leader, and he's House leader for Polyev now. He had a pretty great quip on this when he's replying to Chrystia Freeland when Randy Boisseau endorsed her. He says, "Well, that's 2 votes." I mean, I think you heard me. I just spilled my coffee and guffawed from my office.
I love the headline: "Sheer devastation." That's courtesy James Snow.
Good. Okay. Well, let's bring it a little closer to home here. So last week, Carrie Tate, reporter at the Globe and Mail, put out a story that's been making some waves. There's a lot of layers, and I don't want to spend the rest of the show just trying to unwrap the onion of this. I'll just try to give a high level here. Alberta Health Services being ripped up. Its monopoly on healthcare is being ended. The government still has a monopoly on healthcare-ish, but it's being chopped up into different pieces, and the province is trying to contract out certain services. And there was some turnover as the head of Alberta Health Services and things like that. This woman, I can't pronounce her name. Can you pronounce her name?
No.
Okay.
A woman is call her the head.
The head.
Former head.
Former head. Well, her head was chopped off, and she claims to the Globe and Mail that she was to meet with the Auditor General 3 days before she was let go, where she was going to bring to light problematic or bad, not sure how you want to describe it, but questionable contracts given to private medical companies with connections to the conservative government. I think that's a fair summary.
Sounds about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay, there's smoke. It's worth looking at. Something like this, there's smoke. Doesn't mean there's fire. Maybe there is. But I mean, she was not the first to be canned. They've canned a lot of heads with the HS lately. Possible she was just getting canned anyway, and that's when it was. We've all fired people before, and they normally have things to do before you let them go. But it's not a good look. So I think this has to be looked into. So was she being let go because of that? That's one question. Two, was there anything problematic with these contracts? We don't know. Maybe there was. Were these contracts given because they were just connected to the government? Again, we should find out. So Smith has put this to the Auditor General. I don't know, Dave, is it too early to use the term scandal yet? Or
Well, not if you're Naheed Nenshi. He's been screaming for a week now and continued again this morning in Edmonton, saying Daniel Smith has to step aside. Well, no, Naheed, she doesn't. She's called for an investigation. Interestingly, she has said that she knew nothing about it, and any claims to the contrary are defamatory. So she's already put out that potential lawsuit.
He doesn't have privileges. He doesn't have a seat, so it's not like he can make the accusation in the legislature yet.
Exactly. But she campaigned on the promise that she was going to dismantle the AHS, and that's what she's doing. So this will be the first in many, many leaks from disgruntled AHS workers who are going to get canned to the media about how terrible things are. And things are terrible within Alberta Health. And that's what the Premier is trying to do, is to fix them. Too early to call it a scandal? No. Yes. But as you say, Derek, worth investigating. And Premier Smith has asked for a expedited investigation. So it'll be quick.
So just to what you said, Dave, on Nenshi, Nenshi saying Daniel Smith and the Health Minister, LaGrange, need to step aside while the investigation takes place. Now, Nenshi has been a politician for going on
15 years.
Forever.
15 plus years. He's been a politician for a while. He's been a politician longer than Justin Trudeau has been Prime Minister. Let me just check my notes. How many times did Naheed Nenshi say that Justin Trudeau needs to step down as Prime Minister whenever there's an investigation into this guy?
Zero.
None ever. Including God knows how many times where he was found to have violated the Conflict of Interest Act. He's never said that. But I mean, it's opposition politics. That's, take it for what it is. But let's look at. Yes, Smith did say she's going to dismantle AHS. She's going to overhaul the whole system. I actually don't think there's any way to fix healthcare in Canada unless you get rid of the Canada Health Act, unless you just do away with the Canada Health Act and allow a private parallel system. You can fiddle with the system all you want. It's just never getting fixed. You can put the smartest people in charge. You can put all the money in the world in there. You can reorganize here and there. It's not getting fixed. But she's going to give it the college try. So, fine. She said she was going to do that. And that might be what's angering and motivating some bureaucrats in here. But the allegation is, at least strongly implied, that this person was fired to stop wrongdoing from being exposed. It's not that things are being contracted out. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Question is it being contracted out to friends of government without reasonable competition? Not everything can be put out to competition, but most things can. That's the allegation. How serious is it, Cory?
Well, the allegation's serious, but again, we need an investigation. And I mean, also what Premier Smith's taking on is a behemoth of an entrenched bunch of entitled bureaucrats who are going to throw every wrench into every effort she makes to change that system. I mean, of course, the media trotted out the usual friends of Medicare. They should put that quote underneath union group. I mean, these are self-interested people. I fired a server from the coffee shop we own in Pritis one time, and lo and behold, she put up a bunch of reviews on Google saying we had mice in the kitchen and served people moldy sandwiches.
Well, you should have sold the moldy sandwiches.
I discounted them. But, I'm saying when a person's nose is out of joint after being canned, you have to take that with a grain of salt. There might be truth. I don't know. But I mean, Nietzsche, and I understand it. He smells blood in the water, and by all means, pounce. But he's overplaying his hand, and he's getting to the point of absurdity when he's immediately demanding the premier resign over this, when all we're at right now is a letter from a person who just got fired. We need a little more meat on the bone before we start talking about having a premier resign. And if this turns out to be a nothing burger, then she's going to look less credible when he actually had a really good opportunity to make reasonable hay out of this thing. So we'll see.
Mhm.
And I mean, hey, if it turns out that Marshall Smith really did have some arm twisting going on, and they have evidence of it, and that was Daniel Smith's chief of staff, our relation, just for people listening, then we got something serious, because we don't want to see that in government. We want to make sure we're getting the best person for the job, not the best connected person. So we'll see. But the overreaction is not helping the credibility of Alberta's opposition right now.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap our show up with our parting shots. Start with you, Cory.
Sure. Well, again, I give the good and I give the bad with President Trump, but he has changed the world map in more ways since Magellan. The Gulf of America has been created. If you go on Google Maps, it's now listed as Gulf of America. It used to be Gulf of Mexico. Even Apple Maps, which, kind of dug their heels in as a bit of a woke company, they bent. It is Gulf of America as far as the maps are concerned. I'm sure it's not that as far as the Mexicans are concerned, but this is not a minor thing. He's changing the definitions of what some international pieces of territory are called.
Don't dead name it. Don't dead name it and call it the Gulf of Mexico.
The Associated Press White House reporter was refused admittance to the Oval Office yesterday because his company's style guide has not changed.
Yeah, he's not just making a statement. He's actually really putting the push on with it. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing.
I don't agree with that. That's an editorial decision, and they don't have to follow the dictates of a government.
So that's Stalin-esque.
Either way. Oh, no, that's just
It's funny.
Trump's bizarreness. But
But owning the libs, that's fun. But I don't like that. That's getting into press freedom.
either way, he's made his mark on the world already. So,
Dave, your parting shot.
Best news story of the year yesterday was Elon Musk screaming up to the sidewalk, jumping out in a tuxedo and saying the names Balls, Harry Balls, and changing his Twitter handle to that name, and watching the faces of the female CNN journalists, anchor women, saying Elon Musk, who is now identifying as Harry Balls, is truly an unforgettable historical moment.
America might be screwing with us right now, but I'm kind of jealous of being in like the Americans are just having fun right now. It's a fun time in America. What they're doing with Canada, it's not cool. It's not so fun. But for those who are invited to the party, it's a pretty good time right now. Speaking of invited to the party, so and Elon Musk and Doge, so they're going after Doge is going after USAID, exposing all sorts of hilariously contemptible programs that they're spending American taxpayers' money on, just wild stuff. And that really quickly got a bunch of people in Canada's ears to pop up saying, well, what's our equivalent doing at Global Affairs Canada? What are they spending money on for foreign aid? What are some of these people look at the big numbers, like how much are we spending on foreign aid, but we don't tend to really look into what are we spending it on? Are we, doing, are we funding sex change operations for iguanas in Ecuador? That's the kind of thing they're finding, jokingly speaking, but it's wacky stuff like that. Really quickly, as soon as this started to become a huge issue in the United States with USAID getting ripped apart by Doge, Global Affairs Canada's foreign aid website, it just went dark. It went down. Now, they claim it was some kind of technical issue or a maintenance.
No way.
No. Now, it became a news story that it was down, so it was actually more damaging than any information that would actually get found there. So they put it back up, and we've had some reporters crawl through it, Dave.
Yeah, Jen did a good job. All sorts of weird stuff that just makes, as you said,
let's go do it. So angry.
Show everyone.
Yeah, you digging in that side.
Say hi, Jen.
Oh, jeez.
there she is.
Hi, Jen. Yeah. So yeah, be sure to check out what's the name of the headline on that story.
Oh goodness.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay. Well, hey, we've got it up on the standard there.
Yeah,
you can check it out. But I thought it was just quite convenient timing that it just disappears off the Government of Canada's website in time for Canadian taxpayers to not be able to go and see what kind of iguana sex change operations in Ecuador we're funding or something like that. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for today. Been a slice.
Thank you.
I like the new setup. I think it's better than just the tacky green screen. I like having this. We want your feedback. Let us know in the comments section. Do you like the new setup? We switched our mics. Hopefully the sound's better. Hopefully the picture's better. I haven't changed studios. We just literally turned it 90 degrees so that the newsroom's in the background here. We want to hear from you. Also, if you got any news tips, let us know in the comments or email Dave, news@westernstandard.news. And very importantly, remember, the Western Standard is not funded by USAID or Global Affairs Canada or by the big media bailout subsidy from the federal government. We're funded by a little bit of advertising and from subscriptions and memberships from people like you. Yes, we're funded by you. Hopefully you, because if it's not you, you're a cheapskate and you're just watching this stuff and reading this stuff for free. So don't be cheap. Sign up, go to westernstandard.news right now, click on subscribe. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year, and you'll get unlimited access to all Western Standard content past that pesky paywall, and you'll be doing your part to help one of the very, very last independent, federal government funded media outlets left in Canada. Thank you very much for joining us today, and God bless.